With a calm face and heavy heart, Jungkook walked into the police station, not as a superstar, but as a man who had finally reached his breaking point. Following the chilling incident where a taehyung fan attempted to break into his private home just hours after his military discharge, BTS's Jungkook has officially filed a police report. And with that quiet but resolute action, the world witnessed a turning point, not just in his personal journey, but in the ongoing fight for idol privacy and safety in the K-pop industry. "I've been silent for too long," Jungkook reportedly said during the interrogation session at the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency. It was not a dramatic outburst, not a cry for sympathy, just a calm, firm statement from someone who had endured more than most will ever know. Behind closed doors, Jungkook sat with officers and, for the first time, opened up about the years of fear, anxiety, and invasions of privacy he had silently endured. He recounted moments of waking up to strangers outside his home, receiving unsolicited gifts and food, and always having to glance over his shoulder, even in places meant to be safe. "I kept hoping it would stop if I stayed quiet. But it never did," he said, according to sources close to the case. "It only got worse." The breaking point came when his home, the very place meant to be his sanctuary after nearly 2 years of military service, was violated. According to law enforcement, the taehyung had attempted to gain access to his residence under the pretense of a delivery, an act premeditated, calculated, and undeniably threatening. What shook Jungkook the most, however, was not just the invasion itself, but the fact that his mother was inside at the time. Family, he reportedly told the authorities, had always been his last boundary. And now, even that had been crossed. For years, Jungkook has maintained a gentle tone with fans. Despite rising fame, he often addressed privacy concerns politely, urging fans not to wait outside his home, not to send food, not to cross certain lines. But those warnings, posted quietly on social media, were met with only temporary compliance. "This isn't just about me being an idol," Jungkook said during his report. "It's about being a human being." The case has now officially been registered with Seoul Police as a criminal trespassing and stalking investigation. Authorities are working with Jungkook's legal representatives and Big Hit Music to identify patterns of behavior from recurring taehyungs and to implement restraining orders where necessary. It marks a new chapter in how K-pop stars respond to persistent and dangerous fan behavior, not with silence, but with legal action. Fans across the globe, upon learning of the report, reacted with an outpouring of emotion, relief, pride, and heartbreak all at once. "He's been protecting us for years," one army tweeted. "Now it's time we protect him." Another wrote, "The fact that he walked into a police station alone, after carrying this pain in silence for so long, that takes strength. That's courage." Korean netizens and mental health experts have also weighed in, applauding Jungkook's decision not only for its personal significance, but for what it symbolizes in the larger context of celebrity culture in South Korea. Silence, they say, is no longer an acceptable price for fame. Jungkook's move may very well pave the way for others, both idols and the public, to speak out when their boundaries are crossed. It challenges the idea that fame must come with a cost of privacy, that love from fans must be endured even when it turns into obsession. As for Jungkook, he has made no further public statements since the police visit. Sources say he is focusing on healing, reconnecting with his family, and taking time to reclaim the peace that was stolen from him. He is not rushing back to the spotlight, and perhaps, for the first time, the world will understand why. This was not a publicity stunt. This was not a press conference. This was a man choosing to protect himself after years of being unprotected. "I've been silent for too long," he said. He isn't silent anymore. What Jungkook did in that police station wasn't just administrative, it was revolutionary. In an industry that often pressures idols to maintain a clean, smiling, conflict-free image, speaking out can feel more dangerous than staying silent. Yet he chose to speak. Not on stage, not through music, but in the cold, sterile room of a police station, without makeup or fanfare. His voice, finally used for himself, carried the quiet weight of liberation. For years, idols have been asked to endure, to be grateful, to smile through fear, nod politely through panic, and pretend that being followed home at midnight is a sign of love, not harassment. The term saesing has become so normalized in the K-pop lexicon that many forget its meaning is rooted in violation. And Jungkook, with one action, has forced everyone to remember. Fans are now asking the question that should have come much earlier. How many times did Jungkook wake up in fear and say nothing? How many nights did he watch from his window, phone in hand, wondering if calling the police would make it worse? How many stalkers did he smile past? How many lines did he let blur, hoping that by being kind, they would stop? But kindness was never the cure. Silence was never the solution. What Jungkook has done is not just protect himself. He's issued a quiet ultimatum to the world. If you love me, let me be safe. Let me breathe. Let me live. Behind closed doors, Big Hit Music has reportedly increased internal protocols around artist protection. Enhanced home security, travel escorts, and reinforced digital privacy have now become a priority. But fans argue it should never have taken this long. The burden of safety should never have fallen solely on the artist's shoulders. Social media is now filled with messages not of rage, but of grief. Grief that it took this long. Grief that he had to endure in silence. Grief that he, and likely so many others, learned to normalize the abnormal. Some fans are sharing their own stories of anxiety and trauma, building a chorus of support not just for Jungkook the idol, but Jungkook the human. Others are starting global campaigns advocating for stricter legal action against saesangs, proposing laws modeled after stalking protection acts in countries like Japan and the United States, and South Korea, where the idol fan dynamic is complex and often romanticized. This moment may mark a necessary reckoning, one where the fantasy ends and real consequences begin. Because if Jungkook, one of the most beloved, protected, and internationally respected stars, can be violated in his own home, then no idol is truly safe under the current system. This is no longer just a fandom issue. It's a cultural one. There is something unspoken but devastating about the moment an artist has to defend their right to be alone. When applause fades and the curtains close, they do not disappear. They go home, like anyone else. And home, of all places, should not be another stage. Jungkook's act of stepping into that police station, of finally choosing himself, is a reminder to the industry, to the public, and even to other idols. Your life matters more than your image. He has broken his silence not to fight his fans, but to protect them from the darker parts of themselves. From the idea that love must be total, consuming, boundaryless. He is teaching the very people who adore him what real love looks like. It protects. It respects. It stops when asked. And maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. That in the coming weeks, we may see follow-up statements, increased legal action, perhaps even new policy announcements from entertainment agencies. But what will linger longer than any headline is the image of Jungkook sitting in that room, not as a performer, but as a person. Tired, steady, determined. The voice we've heard in so many songs finally used for himself. And while it may have taken years to reach this moment, he has arrived, not as someone asking for permission, but as someone drawing the line. The silence is over, and for once, the world has no choice but to listen. As news of Jungkook's police report spreads across global media outlets, the response has been immediate and emotional. Not just from ARMY, but from fellow artists, activists, and journalists who have long understood the undercurrent of exploitation behind the glamour of K-pop. Several public figures have taken to social media to voice support, praising Jungkook's courage not only to defend his own safety, but to do so without spectacle. His refusal to let the situation be dismissed as just another fan incident is already inspiring a broader conversation about mental health, agency, and control in a world where public figures are expected to be endlessly accessible. Mental health professionals are now weighing in, calling his action not just brave, but necessary. Dr. Min Soo-jin, a clinical psychologist who has worked with entertainers under anonymity, spoke to local media, saying, "What Jungkook did is more than a report, it's a reclamation." When someone reclaims their personal space after trauma, especially when it's been repeatedly violated, they are saying, "I deserve to be whole again." And this, perhaps more than any headline, is the most human truth behind the story. That Jungkook, the artist who has poured his soul into every note and lyric, who has stood under more pressure than most will face in a lifetime, is now finally standing for himself. It has always been easy to admire his strength when it showed up on stage, in sweat-drenched performances, in stadiums full of screaming fans, in awards accepted with a smile. But now we see the other kind of strength, the quieter one, the one that walks into a police station without a press conference, the one that knows this may not be well received by everyone, but does it anyway. Because enough is enough. In many ways, this isn't just the end of Jungkook's silence. It's the beginning of a new kind of dialogue in K-pop, where safety comes before sales, where silence is no longer demanded as the price of peace, where artists are not taught to endure abuse, but empowered to reject it. The path ahead won't be easy. There will still be sasaengs, still be blurred lines, still be fans who confuse access with love and obsession with devotion. But there will also now be a line, a legal, emotional, and cultural line, drawn by someone who dared to say, not anymore. Jungkook has always been known as the golden maknae, the golden youngest, the prodigy, the untouchable. But what makes him extraordinary now isn't the gold. It's the humanity, the willingness to say that even the strongest need protection. Even the most adored deserve privacy. Even the most loved should not have to live in fear. And for every young idol watching from the shadows, every trainee too scared to speak up, every artist who has ever wondered if their pain was part of the job, Jungkook just sent a message. You can say no, you can speak, you can protect yourself, because you matter. And for those who truly love him, that is the most powerful lyric he's ever written. Not in melody, but in action. Not in performance, but in truth. This story continues to unfold. As the investigation proceeds and the fandom processes this moment, one thing is already clear. Jungkook has found his voice, not as an idol, but as a person. And this time, the world isn't singing back, it's listening. Somewhere tonight, Jungkook sits in a quiet room. The noise of the world, for once, doesn't reach him. Not the applause, not the cameras, not the endless digital flood of opinions, predictions, and praise, just silence. And this time, it is not the suffocating silence of helplessness. It is the chosen silence of a man who has spoken, finally, firmly, and no longer needs to explain himself. The world knows now. He asked gently. He pleaded quietly. He gave warnings with grace. But when the world did not listen, when his safety was compromised, when his home was no longer sacred, he stood. He walked into a place no idol wants to walk. And he said the words no idol should ever have to say. I've been silent for too long. And in doing so, he did something powerful. He gave others permission. He gave permission to the next rookie idol, scared and overwhelmed, to say no to the things that crossed the line. He gave permission to fans to re-examine what it means to love someone from afar. He gave permission to the industry to stop treating boundaries as optional. He gave permission to himself to stop shrinking to fit the mold of perfection and to live honestly, even if it makes some uncomfortable. This isn't the end of his story. It's a shift away from idol mythology and toward human truth. A reminder that the people we watch, adore, and celebrate are not ideas. They are not fantasies. They are not entertainment machines created to sustain our joy at the cost of their own. They are people, and Jungkook, in all his brilliance, grace, and strength, has drawn a line not just around his home, but around his spirit. To love him now, truly, is to honor that line. To respect the silence when it comes. To support the pause when it's needed. To stand behind, not above him, when he chooses protection over performance. What happens next may not come quickly. There may be no instant answers.
No saben clarity.
But this moment, this decision to finally speak, will echo. It will ripple through the fandom, through the industry, through the conversations parents and agencies and executives now must have. And in that ripple, maybe, just maybe, we become something better, more aware, more respectful, more human. Let this be remembered, not as the day a Saesin got arrested, but as the day Jungkook stopped asking for peace and claimed it. As the day the world saw a global icon not smiling, not singing, not dancing, but standing.
Quiet.
Resolute. Real, because it turns out silence was never weakness. IT was waiting, and now that it's broken, may we never ask him to hold it again.